So season 8, episode 3, The Long Night of Game of Thrones premiered, and it turns out the crypts were actually not safe at all.
Who could have seen that coming?
I denied it. I thought it was too obvious, but they made the crypts unsafe. You just...
After saying it a good dozen times.
I know.
That was a lot of episode.
Yeah.
Not even just literally, it was 82 minutes, the longest episode I think they've ever done.
Yeah, I guess so.
It really felt like a movie, and just a huge technical feat because they shot this for actual months. Obviously, the dragons had a big part in it, though not enough if you ask me, but that's kind of the problem with dragons. Because once you have a dragon, you're like, why aren't we just using the dragon to kill everything? I had problems with the darkness, as I feel like a lot of people did.
There were times where you couldn't tell who was dying, and I maybe thought main characters were dying and then realized that they weren't because I think I could make them out in another scene.
Right, at some point it just became trying to figure out who you were looking at every time.
In the piles of bodies.
And on the one hand, that's a really interesting style choice because I feel like what they were trying to do with that was really thrust you into just how chaotic this kind of battle would be, how even if you had great plans, which I don't think they did, to be honest, but we'll get to that later, it could all go wrong immediately, and then you're just trying to fight your way out of a pile of screaming whites.
Which literally happened.
And
on the flip side, like we were about to say, is that it was also a learning experience. As a viewer, it's actually kind of hard to tell what's happening.
Extremely hard to tell what's happening, and I feel like for me, I could have done 10 minutes of that and that would have gotten the point across fine.
Sure.
But I feel like so much of the episode was just trying to stay on top of what was happening that having seen it once, I feel like I still am not 100% on what happened.
So besides all the darkness, not being sure which characters were alive and they were dead, we actually do have some confirmed deaths, and they're big. And we've got Ser Jorah Mormont. And we've got Dolorous Edd. And we've got Beric Dondarrion. And we've got Lyanna Mormont. And am I missing someone?
Theon Greyjoy.
Theon Greyjoy, the greatest death of the episode, I would say. Well, Jorah was pretty good.
I don't know,
too.
Melisandre had a pretty good.
Oh my God, how could I forget?
Just wandering out into the ice, her job being done.
That did seal the episode pretty well. With her just kind of fading away.
A good transition to whatever's coming next. This episode also drew a lot from horror conventions in a way that I thought was really effective. Like, I feel like one of the best uses of the all-encompassing dark was the first wave of Dothraki going out with the swords that Melisandre lit on fire. Great visual of them going out with the fire, and then the horror of watching them get extinguished all at once, one by one, and everyone realizing just how screwed they were.
Right. And you're reminding me that I just want to, for my man Ghost, I do think it was not right to just send him out there and then not have him in the rest of the episode again. What's wrong with you guys?
Right, even if I was a little bit like, guys, you're sending out the Dothraki first, those are like your best guys, and also like half your non-white people, or you just killed all of them.
It was a little bad.
A little much.
Like a very good visual, but strategically probably the poorest decision you could make as a military leader.
Right, and I think that kind of plagued the entire episode, is that there wasn't, we were wondering last week why we didn't see them talking much strategy, and then I was watching this episode, I was like, oh, it's because they didn't have much strategy at all. You know, they had the fire trenches. Why weren't there so many more fire trenches? Why weren't they first? What were the dragons supposed to be doing? I'm looking at John and Danny and I'm going, do you guys have any idea what you're doing at all?
Military strategy.
Right. I just feel like they came out of this looking pretty bad.
The whole scene with Arya in the library reminded me of the kids in Jurassic Park with the velociraptors, and they're trying to sneak around, and after all the action, it slowed it back down so that when the action picked back up again, it was really exciting.
I think that's the kind of thing that if you have 82 minutes, why not do something like that to kind of break up? Because at that point, the battle was getting really monotonous. It's just like a lot of black, blurry, shots of fire stuff. So like at that point, it was kind of nice to like get a breather, in so much as that was a breather, because it was also extremely stressful. But I feel like it was really eerie and smart. As long as we're fighting a zombie battle, I liked bringing in some stuff that felt a little bit more like it was from zombie movie conventions. Like you also saw that with, I mean, this isn't a convention, but World War Z, it felt very much like World War Z with that giant pile of white bodies where they're just like, well, if you're gonna try and keep us out with fire, we'll just put a body on it and we'll figure it out. We'll just walk over.
Put enough bodies, the fire can't get us.
It's a flesh drawbridge. So that's very horrifying.
Yeah. As far as Arya sneaking around the library, it kind of sets up, and like they set this up a little bit over the past couple seasons with like allusions to her being very stealthy, or like obviously being very lethal. but her sneaking around the library was a kind of a setup and a reminder that she can get around people without any notice, which eventually leads to her being told by Melisandre or reminded by Melisandre that she is going to shut many eyes forever, one of those color eyes being blue eyes, which apparently meant the Night King. So Arya sneaks off for a good 5, 10, or 15 minutes.
A long time. She disappears from the episode until she comes back with a vengeance.
She comes back in
literal vengeance.
Arya killed the Night King.
Arya killed the Night King.
We were all wondering who was going to do that.
All wondering. Undeniably, really cool moment where she comes out of nowhere. Do I wish we had a little bit more of like an indication that it was going to happen? Sure. You could kind of tell that they had worked from the shocking moment backwards. They knew that they wanted Arya to kill the Night King and that it was going to be like a big surprise. But it did kind of...
They referred to that after the episode. They said that they knew 3 years in advance that they wanted to have Arya do that, so they started planting those seeds.
Right, which I think is really good. You know, if you know you have this thing coming up and you want to, plant the seeds of Arya being lethal and sneaky enough to do it, great. The moment itself did kind of remind me of that really shocking moment when Arya and Sansa turned on Littlefinger. And it was really cool and great and surprising in the moment. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh, I wish I had seen a little bit of Arya and Sansa planning that, or like any sort of indication that they could be working together. I think the thing that was a little bit jarring about it is that the last time you see Arya before she kills the Night King is Melisandre being like, you're going to kill Blue Eyes. And and then Arya's like, oh, cool, I get it now. And then she's off. And then she makes it through how many whites and how long to get there. I think like, one reason why I loved that library scene so much is because you see her be scared and nervous, and like you see how hard it is for her to do what she does so well.
Only around 4 or 5 of them.
And so I think it was kind of funny to me thinking back on it that the second Melisandre's like, yeah, but you can do it. She's like, you know what? You're right. I can. And then she does.
Sneaks past a dragon, 1 million dead people, and like the 5 or 6 most magical beings in the whole world.
Sure. I love that she did it, but it was a little bit like, oh, you just had to be told to believe in yourself. And then you did.
So even with Arya killing the Night King being probably one of the coolest moments in the whole show, I still felt like when the 2 dragons pop above the clouds and the Night King is flying through the clouds too, which was actually, I think it was a reference to How to Train Your Dragon.
I hope so.
And it was like a kind of crossover event. How to Train Your Dragon and like Mad Max Fury Road. More
than any other part of this episode, you could really feel the weight of the budget that they had with these dragons. And even if Jon and Daenerys had no idea what they were doing on the dragons, the show clearly did, and that shot was so beautiful.
And speaking of survivors, I do feel like maybe I was hoping for more of the main characters to die. I kind of left the episode going like, everyone who did die, I was ready for them, and everyone who stayed alive, I thought there were at least 10 or 20 moments in there, at least 10 or 20, where I could have said, oh, this person's 100% going to die right now, especially when they were backed up against the wall,
Jaime
and there was
Brienne
hordes of guys hitting them. And you're, what are they doing? Are they just like patting their body? They're not attacking them, they're just kind of hugging them, right?
Yeah, and this isn't to say that. I think Jorah and Theon are 2 really big deaths. Those characters have been with the show since the very beginning, but I feel like both of them so completely served their purposes, and they both died, honorably serving the people that they wanted to be serving at the end, and I did like those deaths. If George R. R. Martin had written this battle, there's no way that many people would have survived.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a little disappointing, and I feel like you could just tell they were saving people for these next 3 episodes, because as the end of the episode seemed to indicate, the previews for the next week, we're really going back to like, all right, we got to take down Cersei, who's going to sit on the Iron Throne.
The troops again.
And I feel like the show kind of wrote itself into a weird corner because it spent so long telling us that no, the real battle is the Night King, none of this other stuff matters, and now it's flipping it.